I remember the first time I saw her. I was on my way to class, just another ordinary day at the university. She stepped out of a car, the early morning light catching her auburn hair. I don't know what it was. Her carefree smile, the way she brushed her hair behind her ear. But I was drawn to her, almost like gravity. Her name was Emma, though I didn't know it at the time. I started parking my car near hers, just to catch a glimpse of her every morning. I knew it was silly, borderline ridiculous, but there I was, trying to time my arrival to see her walking into the campus. I never spoke to her. She seemed so out of reach. And besides, we had no mutual friends, no real connection, just the same university, the same parking lot. It was like I existed in a parallel universe where our worlds brushed but never collided. About a month later, I was hanging out with my closest friend, Ben. Ben's not like me. He's quieter, more reserved, a bit awkward when it comes to emotions. We were sitting in his living room just talking about life, when he suddenly looked down at his hands and said, "I think I'm in love." I smiled at him, genuinely happy. Ben had always been shy, especially around girls, and this was a big deal. "Who is she?" I asked, nudging him. He hesitated for a moment before he said her name. "Emma." I felt my stomach drop. The room seemed to spin for a second. I forced a smile, masking everything that was going on inside me. "That's great, man," I said, my voice almost breaking. I wanted to tell him right there, to confess that I, too, was falling for her, that I had spent the last month practically orchestrating my day just to see her. But Ben was my best friend, the kind of person I'd take a bullet for, and he was opening up to me about something he almost never talked about: love. I told myself that I could let it go, that I would forget about her, but I couldn't. The more I tried to push her out of my mind, the more she seemed to occupy it. I knew what I had to do. I decided to help Ben win her over. I figured that if I could see them together, maybe then my feelings would disappear, and I'd finally be able to move on. So, for the next few months, I threw myself into getting them closer. I convinced Ben to drive by her house, saying we could take his dog for a walk near her place, and maybe run into her. He was nervous, hesitant, but he trusted me. He never had the courage to approach her, though. Every time we saw Emma outside, he would freeze, his nerves tying him up in knots. I took matters into my own hands. I left a note on her car, something simple but sweet, just as if Ben had written it. Another time, I spread rose petals on her windshield, hoping it might spark something. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing for Ben, but every time I saw her smile from afar, every time I imagined her reading those notes, my heart twisted painfully. I was torn. I knew what I felt for her, and I knew that I should have confessed to Ben from the start. But now it was too late. I was in too deep, and all I could do was keep playing this strange game where I pretended not to care. Months passed. Nothing seemed to work. Emma didn't respond to the notes, and Ben couldn't bring himself to make a move. Eventually, I realized that I couldn't keep living like this. I told Ben I was busy, that I couldn't go with him anymore. I still showed up now and then, just to keep up appearances, but I had to start distancing myself. It was the only way to preserve my sanity. Then, one evening, Ben and I parked near Emma's place, as usual. This time, she noticed us. I saw her look our way, her brow furrowed, and I knew I had to end this. Later that night, I decided to text her. I had her number through a mutual friend, though I'd never used it before. I told her I needed to talk, that it was important. To my surprise, she agreed to meet me, too. We met at a small cafe off campus, the kind of place that's always half empty, perfect for private conversations. I was nervous, palms sweating as I saw her walk in. She smiled at me, a little unsure but friendly. We sat down, and for a few moments, we just talked about classes, life, little things. Then I told her everything. I told her about Ben, about how he'd been too shy to approach her, about all the ridiculous things I'd done to try to make something happen between them. I even confessed to the notes and the rose petals. She listened, her expression softening, and when I was done, she just sighed. "Listen, it's really sweet of you to do all this for your friend," she said. "But I need to be honest. I'm just not interested in him that way. She smiled, a little apologetically, but also with a sense of firmness. I think you should tell him to move on. I'm not what he's looking for. I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and something else I couldn't quite name. We sat there for a while longer, and the conversation slowly shifted. We talked about life, our ambitions, and the things that made us laugh. For the first time, I saw her not as some distant fantasy, but as a real person. Someone flawed, someone kind, someone that maybe, just maybe, I could get to know better. As we left the cafe, she turned to me and said, "You know, you're not as sneaky as you think. I noticed you a few times." She smiled, and for a second, I thought I saw something more there, something that made my heart race. I walked away that evening feeling lighter, like I'd finally let go of a secret that had been crushing me for months. And maybe, just maybe, this was a beginning. One that I hadn't planned for, but one that felt right. So, that's my story. Stuck between love and friendship. It wasn't easy, but sometimes we have to make tough choices. What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.